Welcome to the Better Agent Podcast. If you're a real estate agent that's looking to grow your business, then you're in the right place. Whether you want to go from 5 to 10 transactions a year, or 10 to 50 transactions per year, or more, well, then this show is for you. I'm Josh Lavik, your host for the Better Agent Podcast, and in each episode, we'll bring you the tools, tips, and tricks directly from myself and some of the best leaders within the real estate industry. We have one goal in mind, and that's to boost your production and elevate your real estate game. Let's dive in and start creating a better real estate experience together. Welcome to the Better Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Lavik, and we are here to explore with myself and other wonderful leaders within the real estate industry about growth and growing your real estate business, whether you're at 5 or 10 transactions a year or want to ramp that up to 20, 30 or more. So whatever level you're at in your real estate business and your real estate career, this podcast is for you, and we are here to explore some of the tips, tricks, and other things in the real estate business amongst other leaders. So I've got a great guest today, and I'm so excited to bring on Michael Schuster. I've known you for many years. I myself have been in the real estate business for 19 years, so a long time as well. But I mean, you've been in over 30 some years, I think it is, when I was looking.
Yeah, it's pretty close. 1997, which my daughter calls me a dinosaur already. And I'm like, whoa, man. But I guess to a 9-year-old, that I probably am pretty old or ancient.
Yeah, to a 9-year-old, yeah.
I've known 3 careers. I farmed with our family until I went to college.
Okay.
Then kind of did a couple of odds and ends, learned door-to-door sales. And then I trained people in college to do door-to-door sales for a couple of years. Graduated from college.
What were you selling?
At that time, it was Royal Prestige. So it was the high-end wireless cookware and the cutlery and the stoneware products.
Okay.
And the whole idea was to build people up, get confidence in them, go out and try to set up home parties to show the products to. So I did that briefly, and then wanted to kind of get back, because at that point they had me in Minnesota, kind of middle Minnesota. And I go, I really wanted to get closer to friends and family. And so I moved back.
Are you from the Madison area here?
Yeah, we were born and raised 3 miles south of Sun Prairie on a decent sized dairy farm out there by the dairy farm land of the Stotts.
So you had morning chores on the farm growing up?
Every morning, absolutely. The scariest wake up is hearing Dad's work boots coming up the stairs to get you. I said, you didn't want to have him hit your door before you were jumped out of bed, or tough to be paid, price to be paid at that point.
Yeah.
And so, yes, we did the morning chores. Came back and actually farmed a bit with my brother and my dad. And we kind of realized that it wasn't really a big enough operation to support. My grandma and grandpa were alive at that point. My dad and mom were alive. And then my older brother, he was taking over the farm. And then if I came about, that would be a lot of families to support on a 300-acre farm. So, and then the other thing is that Grandpa was very traditional. My dad was extremely traditional. My dad trained or taught my brother to be very traditional. And I went to the University of Wisconsin and learned a little less labor intense and a little more management and productive ways of doing things. And it was usually 2 or 3 against 1.
Yeah.
I realized
did you study farming in school or something totally different?
It was ag, college of ag and life sciences. I went into the engineering end of things, decided I really didn't want to be in an office and doing experiments. And I really didn't like physics and calculus and chemistry. Chemistry was okay. The other ones were a little, not really my cup of tea. So then I stepped back. There's another program that's called mechanization and marketing. And so we always thought the ideal job was to work for one of the large implement dealers or the large tractor manufacturing companies. Like, I had an internship with Alice Chalmers in Milwaukee. I had ties to like people down in Des Moines that had John Deere under their belt. At that time, Ford and International, they were all big powers. Well, when I graduated in the mid 80s, all of those companies were merging. So there wasn't big opportunities for somebody that had my skill sets to market and design and work with field studies of tilling and planting and stuff like that. So I stayed back another semester and ended up getting a business and economics degree as well. Okay. So that's really how I actually evolved.
Yeah. Well, isn't that interesting? You know, I'm hearing this story. I mean, you start from farming and then go through doing marketing and something like that, and then somehow it develops into business economics, eventually leads to real estate. I had kind of a similar path. I was a biology major in my undergrad, right? So, you know, studying ecology, environmental science, that kind of thing, right? Has nothing to do with real estate, and yet somehow led to a career in real estate. So I think it speaks to, regardless of your background, regardless of what you've studied, this career you can be successful in a lot of different areas just based on just a lot of different factors. But I think regardless of where you started, I think there's an opportunity there. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting.
It's definitely one of those careers that, you know, can speak to a lot of people with a lot of different skill sets or talents and stuff like that.
How'd you make that shift? How'd you transition, right? Why real estate? How'd you get into that? Tell me.
I actually went and interviewed after my brother and dad and myself had a talk about probably not a lot of opportunity here or big enough farm. So I went and interviewed for several car dealerships in the area, and all of them says, well, we'll interview you, but we're not hiring at this point. Like,
oh, wow.
I needed the experience because I really had interviewed a whole lot. I always was hired on the spot or got led into an opportunity, I felt. So I interviewed. The first one says, all right, thank you, and we'll keep you in mind. The next one said, yeah, I think we could use some of the skills that you have and your kind of connections in the area and stuff like that. We'd like to sit down and maybe work out having you come to work for us. And so I go, I'll think about it, because that was a pretty big change. I'd not ever been in the automobile field and car business. Again,
you thought you were maybe going to help sell tractors, which you know about tractors, but if not really knowing much about cars, maybe it might be a little harder thing.
And such. So yes. So end of the day, the other company called me and they wanted to offer me a position too as well. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to do here. So I did go to work for one of them. I worked with them. I had a sales manager that I really liked, and I was able to learn a lot of things about the selling process and the building value of things. Anyway, I enjoyed his company and his leadership, and he ended up kind of moving companies after about a year and a half, and I was like, okay, this seems like now my lifeline to the car industry seems like it's getting shifted around. I went back into the ag field, and I was looking at like Cenex and some of the other different companies. And they were very interested in having me help them grow their sales division or department and in feed and seed and things of that nature. But I don't think they were really ready for what I wanted to do with the company. I think they wanted to have me as like a kind of a catch-all for everything that wasn't getting shored up or where they needed help during different times of growing seasons and stuff. So then I looked at...
And you had some different ideas on how you wanted to do things?
I says, of course, everybody has a kind of a vision or a plan. And I ended up, I actually interviewed, was going to take the midline section of Mitsubishi and Mack over here. I think it's right next to Capital City International. I don't remember the name of the company anymore. It was a whole big thing. They were going to have me lead up their mid lease vehicles that they happen to have had there. And they're going to put a new showroom up and have more inventory for me. The more and more I kind of asked them questions about timing of things and how this was going to go, I found out that, I don't think they're really committed to this either. So a colleague of mine actually said, well, Zimbrick's are actually hiring people. I says, just for the heck of it, I'm going to go over there and see what their program happens to all be about and what they're training.
And Zimbrick, they're big. They're a big dealership around here. Yeah.
They were significant. They are significant. Actually, that's probably one of my all-time kind of heroes is John Zimbrick. To this day, awesome. I see them and they bump into each other, and we always kind of share good things or good thoughts. And he taught me a lot just about business, period business.
Well, clearly they're successful. They've built a massive business around here. So
for a gentleman that grew up on a small farm in northern Illinois or northern Minnesota. We had a lot in common, and that's why I think we kind of would get together and hang out and just chat about matters. And I remember I was telling him I was building a house, and he thought that was the greatest thing ever. And I go, cool. Not that many people supported building a home when you're fresh out of college or fairly recent out of college and just kind of getting into the career world. And he goes, oh, no, he says, I think that is the greatest thing ever. He says, because what happens is that they need to make money to make their payments. And so they work longer or work harder. And I go, one way to look at it, I guess.
I just bought a house. I got to make the payment. Better get to work. Yeah.
It says, need to sell some more cars to cover my bills for the month.
Right.
But they were great. And actually, I was there for, believe it or not, I was in the car business almost 15 years. Matter of fact, I was in the car business because I remember celebrating because I'd earned a sales contest and won a trip to Mexico, all expenses paid, for a week. And I remember it was the anniversary of when I started in the car business 15 years ago. And we were sitting in a pool down in Mexico, living the good life at a swim up bar and just having fun, man. And I'm going 15 good years. That's anyway, awesome. How I ended up getting into the real estate is the broker of Remax happened to be one of my customers.
Oh, okay.
And we kind of led him along the way and guided him and got him out of buying cars and actually getting into leasing because it just made a lot more sense from him. And finally he realized that. And then after he'd work with me on a car, he would come back and try to recruit me to get me into real estate. That went on for probably about 5 years of this last 5 years of working in the car business.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I went to more Remax awards banquets as a guest than I think I've gone after I was actually recruited.
Oh, wow.
Because they used to take a coach and they used to jump on a bus and celebrate all the way down to the Pfister. And then they'd have this grand awards banquet, which was like something that I'd never had seen in my life. And this is pretty impressive, actually, that this happens to go on. They did some of that in the car business, but not to the level that they do it in. They did it back then in the real estate practice. So, but I don't know. I think after about 4 or 5 years, they recruited one of my colleagues in the car business, and then they started faxing me their commission checks.
Oh,
what they forgot to tell me is that it took them probably 3 to 6 months to earn that commission check.
Yeah, a little longer timeline than a car, right? People could walk in on a car lot and buy on the spot, right? Versus buying or selling a home or something.
It says
can easily take 3 to 6 months, right?
Yeah, it's not as steady, but the payday is a little bit on the bigger side of things. So it intrigued me enough to have them take me under their wing. My friend that I worked with in the car business, I hired them as kind of a mentor and gave them a percentage of my commissions to help me get in front of people and to kind of get trained back when I got started into it and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I ended up getting into the real estate world. After I think our agreement was like 6 months or 9 months or whatever. And they got very busy in the metropolitan place. And I'd already had taken off because I basically recouped some of my past customers from the car business over.
You let them know when you made that shift. So like you reached out to them and, hey, I made a change in my career. Is that kind of what you did?
That's exactly how it kind of had went. And they did not let me down in any shape or any way. I mean, they actually helped me hugely get a good foothold and get started into the real estate. Matter of fact, to this day, I still market to that group of people and call saying, you've been sending me calendars, you've been marketing to me, keeping us in mind. And they have me come and help them downsize or sell a family, like say their parents' home or stuff like that. I just had 2 of them happen this year. Hadn't had a lot of contact with them in 30 years. And here all of a sudden they're contacting me and remember me, I bought this and this over when you worked at Zimbrix, and you've been marketing to me and keeping us in mind, and no better person we thought than to have you come and help us. And I'm like,
well, I think that speaks volumes to your heart and your integrity as a person, because if you did, since you did such a great job in one other area of their life with their car, and they still thought to use you as in this other area of life, like that speaks volumes to you as a person. And I know it's no secret, myself included, right? Much of my business and every top agent that I'm aware of, they have their core sphere of influence, people that do support them and do support their business because they do a good job for exactly those reasons, right? You treat people right, you do what's in the best interest of them, and they're automatically going to want to do business with you.
Yep, exactly. Kudos and absolutely correct. That's what sustains you incredibly well in this particular business and changing environments and just having business continually to come to your doorstep and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you do it well and you're thorough with it and you always have their interest ahead of everybody else's, they understand it. And they also recommend family and other coworkers to come and at least talk to you so you get an opportunity to discuss with them and stuff like that. So I've always been teased about that a little bit, taking way more than the time necessary to get the deal done and to get the sale closed. Yeah. And I just said, you know what, to me, that's part of it. But I says that for me, the bigger part is the experience of going through that process. That's very unique and can be very overwhelming, and kind of breaking it down and stepping them through it, letting them know what to expect at the next, step or level, and just kind of helping them, hand holding them and helping them through the whole steps or the whole process.
Yeah.
And they like the fact that you take the extra time to go over things with them and explain matters to them. Now, does it always work? I'll tell you, there's people that are heavy drivers that we don't actually do that as well with that, because I want to slow it down and make sure everything is understood and carry the details. And they just want to get the deal wrapped up and negotiated and done and move on to their next step. And I'm like, I've learned to adapt to that, but it took me a while because I always wanted to make sure I had everything covered.
Yeah. That's a great point you mentioned, right? I mean, because that is a skill set, I think, that a good realtor, any good salesperson, I think, can do, is you really got to listen to your client and kind of tune in to their own personality, right? I mean, knowing if someone is maybe more of that driver personality, they want things and they want answers more quickly maybe than somebody that's maybe a little bit more analytical or wants to think things through. They maybe need more data, more information, or whatever. So I think having that skill set as an agent, I think, is extremely valuable. I know for myself, we've done a number of different trainings on that as well, to be able to meet the customer where they're at, with giving them the right tools and information that they need and treating them how they want to be treated, right? So I think that's an important skill set for any new agent or experienced agent, right, to develop and almost be a little more like a chameleon in some respects, right? In the sense that you want to, if you're trying to drive too hard for the sale, right, that's going to turn people off and also if they want to go maybe a little faster, right, if you're going too slow, that can also turn people off. And so you kind of got to adapt to your customer in a big way. So that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've noticed that as well, at least in my career. So for sure.
Yeah. I know I've talked myself past the sale many times before I learned that lesson.
Yeah.
But you just have to learn it and experience it. And then it becomes ingrained into you or part of you, because then you start seeing the signs and reading the body language and understanding it a little bit better. And it's not just in sales, it's really in relationships too, is to understand 100% personality types and stuff like that. We were taught basically in the back of your mind to analyze the personality type, find out if they're more people oriented or task oriented. Are they more aggressive or are they less aggressive? And once you understand or can basically answer those two questions, then you're well on your way of understanding how they want to be helped or handled.
Yeah, totally.
That's it. It is. It's especially, it seems like in this day, it seems like because people are so busy and they're overwhelmed with so much information.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You got to be able to at least connect in with them somehow and kind of analyze a little bit of, how to best serve them. Because if you don't, your competitor will.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense for sure. So that actually makes me think of something you and I had talked about the other day that I'd like to shift the conversation to, is this idea of team building, right? Because I think part of something I've noticed over the years, right, is some real estate agents, a lot of real estate agents sometimes maybe would just be a single solo agent, just trying to do most of the tasks by themselves. But we've also seen sort of a proliferation and a development in terms of more of a team-based structure, and how you do get lots of different personalities, but there can be pros and cons to that. And how do you adapt, or how do you best serve the customer? And do you grow your team, or do you not grow your team? And how do you develop? I don't know. I'd be curious to hear maybe some of your insights on that, just what you've noticed over the years.
Well, one of the things that I did early in my career, I was probably a year and a half into the business, maybe 2, I actually hired administrative people, which was unthinkable
Unthinkable over 30 years ago, right? What agent had hired another person, right?
This is to take care of a bunch of the admin stuff. Like I said, it was just forward thinking. It was not the skill set that I wanted to focus my day entirely on. I had other people that were better at that stuff and better at customer care, having the prompt timing to be able to respond to them because they're in the office and taking care of other admin things.
Yep.
So we ended up hiring admin people, and then eventually following that, we ended up hiring some agents as well and bringing them in under your wing and mentoring them, training them, and helping them cultivate leads and businesses and things like that. But everybody that I've actually ran basically through a mentoring process, I actually made them do the admin part for at least a year, so that they could understand the mechanics and the understanding and the steps of the sale, and also to help them put some prospects underneath their pipelines where they could start learning the skill sets of communicating with them and following up with them with important details, and then ultimately being in a little bit better position to thrive on their own on a commission-based, business like this. So it was kind of cool. I remember when they had the awards banquets for RE/MAX down in Milwaukee, there was numerous times that they'd have me speak just about that piece of it, what I felt about having a team, having help. At that time, the team was like 3 or 4 people. So that was a pretty big thing, or a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
It got almost so kind of exciting for me is that we had a small team that I was told to go to the awards banquet. I don't remember exactly what year it happened to have been, but I was up for an award. They didn't really tell me what award it happened to have been. Well, what it turned out to being, we were the number 3 team for RE/MAX for RE/MAX across Wisconsin in that particular year. And I'm watching all of these people take teams and go up and sit on the platform, because teams were evolving and developing. And I was like envied of how they managed everybody and how they broke up the workload and how they served customers and stuff like that. Actually, every one of them actually came back and was more interested in how I operated, because I had a team of 5 people and everybody else had 3 to 5 times the amount of people. And we were number 3 with just those few people. And they were trying to figure out, how on earth did you guys handle that volume of business and with this small of a skeleton crew of people and do such a great job? I'm like, so I was a little bit envious of them because they had a much bigger team than I. They were probably a little more envious of myself because of the volume of business that we had done with a small crew.
That's a great
kind of
point.
Exciting.
Oh man, that's a great story. I just absolutely love that. And I think sometimes it's easy to feel envious, like just exactly what you're experiencing. I know I've felt it sometimes as well, going to various awards banquets or some of these larger conferences, and you see these people on stage and they're doing hundreds of transactions or multiple hundreds of them, and they do have these massive teams. Well, if you divide it out like per person, it's maybe not as maybe profitable as one might think. And so sometimes having just a handful of people, if you're all rowing that same race in the right direction, you can be extremely impactful and have a very good, solid business. And I've experienced too. I remember it took me a little longer. What'd you say your first administrative help you hired after a year or two?
Probably a year and a half, 2 years.
Year and a half, right? So it took me, I think, about 5 years in the business before I finally hired my first full-time assistant, my first administrative help. I hired somebody kind of part-time on a per transaction basis to help with some aspects of it. But my first full-time assistant, I think it was about 5 years into the business. And for me, my business immediately took off as well. I mean, I think I grew at least 50% that year. So I love also that you said that it's not important, right? You need to know it inside and out. You need to know the contracts. You need to know the steps. You need to know all that stuff. So even if you're brand new in the business, coming in, like doing that administrative piece for a while is absolutely critical. So you know what to expect, but also recognizing if that's not your strength, don't stay there, right? Go to your strength, go to where you're strong. If it's negotiating contracts, putting deals together, finding clients, that kind of thing, then that's where you need to be and spend your time as an agent, and then have that leverage piece, that other administrative person that again is highly critical to the business. You need that piece, but like segmenting it out, and you don't need to have a massive 50-person team, but you can have 4 or 5 highly effective people. If you're all working on the same goal and working on running that same race, you can absolutely make a huge impact. So that's awesome.
Yep. Well, it kind of comes down to the question of how big do you need to be, or how big do you want to be, and still do a stellar job. Because if you're not serving the public or your customers extremely well, then something needs to change. Either you don't get as big and you go deeper and you serve harder or further, or you hire more people and you grow that particular way. So it's more of probably your personal preference and how you want to set your team up. Basically, you're setting a culture for yourself, and then you're collecting people that support that same kind of mission and culture around you that want to carry those ideals forward and stuff like that. So depends on if volume is the ultimate goal. Yeah, obviously then you grow the team bigger. If personal service, everybody supporting one another, just having a real good communication and knowing each other very well, and knowing when you have a team, there's people that are doing well, and then there's people that are suffering. So you need to know, hey, I need to come in and support these people a little bit harder to get them through some rough patches so that they can get on the other side of this and get through it. Yeah. And that's just part of understanding your team. If you have a huge team, that's challenging to kind of keep everybody positive and feel that they're taken care of and they have what they need and they're served. So you're serving them as well as customers that you're bringing into your transactions. Yep. So you gotta, running a team is definitely a lot different. Being an experienced, well-oiled agent, it's just quite a bit different skill sets. So you got to kind of figure out, are you more management skill set bound, or are you more sales oriented and results bound? And that's a pretty big, deep question that you need to kind of wrestle with yourself, because teams are not, they're glorious and can be unbelievably efficient and effective and unbelievably productive and supportive. Yeah. But they also can be the flip side of that too. And it can happen in a real quick hurry if market changes, attitudes change, whatever, leads dry up. That hurt in 2008. That hurt because there wasn't enough good leads, and everybody was concerned who got which leads and which ones were better than the other lead. And, we were trying to be fair and give them out in a kind of a rotational basis. But there gets to be some interfighting about who's getting served or taken care of better and who's getting the better leads. And when there's not a lot of extra business, taking place or going on, then all of a sudden then your team starts to have breakdowns in it. And you can't have that if you put years of energy and experience and time into helping them, be as good as they can be as an agent.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Well, we're kind of experiencing a little shift right now, right? We've seen interest rates rise, and our overall sales in our market is less. So there is kind of fewer opportunities, I think, out there. I mean, are you noticing? Well, maybe let me ask that differently. What do you think if I'm an agent in this market right now? I mean, what do you see as the key things that might make them successful as we continue to shift through this market?
I think actually going back to a few of the basics again and really getting to know your customer and your client is still kind of super important and key for a number of factors. Number one is just creating that relationship and getting to know them so that you understand them enough to help them in a pretty significant direction or journey or purchase. I think the other is having technology and having staff that are able to basically serve to a higher level and a higher degree. It's nothing different than basically when we had to give the speech back in 2009 and 2010. I says, hey, sitting in an open house and being able to get leads that you can take to other properties and ultimately get a buyer and get them under contract, things are going to be different in this particular market. It's not going to come back how it was prior to 2008, where you could do that, get plenty of people and basically pick out 2 or 3 that you want to continue to call and follow up and serve. I says, you're going to need to be much more skillful with your following up and your communications to that particular person and stay in closer range with them. I think it's a similar thing that's kind of going on right now that still needs to take place. It's just different because now you have other tools and support that you can use and leverage to give them a wow experience.
Yeah.
With what you have. And that's what people are looking for and are expecting, is to have personalized care, personalized follow-up, knowing that, hey, I know they're looking out for my best interest at all angles and are thinking about it even before I'm thinking about it, type of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's always been kind of an underlying detail, is making sure that your customer is put first and they feel that they're the most important in the transaction. If you keep that kind of in mind, then it makes it a little bit, easier to use that as your golden rule, so to speak, and to continue to have that as your core practice.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So I would say continuing to build your skill sets. You can be in this for 25 years and still learn more new things that help you serve better or understand things quicker, or to go, what you find out when you're in a lot more years of experience is now you can withstand challenging things that if somebody who's a little newer into the business has never went through or experienced. I remember trying to walk through short sales for the first time. I mean, it was kind of almost a nightmare because you had no idea where this thing was going to go and how it was going to end up. But now we went through that era at that point in time and learned what you needed to do in order to help people go where they needed to go. In this day and age, it's more of helping them, I guess, through something that's a much more larger transaction than it was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. Just sheer price point of the house is twice as much as it was when we started this business. So you have to try to kind of understand that again from a young buyer's perspective sometimes too. How do we make it as comfortable for them to make a significant investment in purchase?
Yeah. So you touched on some great things that I totally agree with. And in some ways, right, we talk about fundamentals, and it's just about listening to your customer, knowing your customer, but also following up. I can't tell you how many times too, and I just had this experience a couple days ago where I had met with somebody and they said they really appreciated my follow-up and how I just kept touching base with them. I think she had inquired about something and talked with a couple different agents, but like I was, I don't know, maybe more persistent or more just provided value in different ways and followed up with phone calls and emails and text messages, in lots of different ways. And I think at the essence, in some ways, right, it's back to the fundamentals of just staying in touch with people and listening and helping them, But yeah, it's a more digital world, right? We've got different social media messages, or we've got different modes of communication. We've got more digital tools to stay in touch, but also provide value in some ways. But as long as we got to be just listening to them and staying in touch with in a way that is personalized and does give them the value that they want to hear in a way they want to hear it, right? It's not just blasting out a million generic messages, right? That doesn't, you're not tuned into the customer, right? How can we tune into that customer, I think is hugely important. And as we move forward, I believe as well that it is going to be much more personalized to that and nuanced in a way that people want to hear and resonate with. Absolutely.
I totally agree. And basically you need to find a way to communicate, and they need to, basically you've caught their attention and motivated them in a significant way.
Yeah.
We don't always know what that happens to be because you do it in many different avenues or facets. But if they resonate with you and align with you and what they're hearing from you, and you're consistency and steadiness is always kind of an ongoing underlying factor too as well. And I know that's not necessarily personalities of salespeople because they kind of, jump to different
Maybe that's
things.
your farming background. That's that consistency. You got to get up, you do your chores, just get up and do it anyway. Come on.
Think of it as growing wheat or something like that. You start out fertilizing the soil, then you till the soil, then you sow the seed, then you wait and hope that Mother Nature gives it rain and sun, and then you wait more for it to grow.
You keep going and you stay going and keep going and be persistent.
The
and then
reward
at the end of the fall, you have a big harvest.
Exactly. A big harvest.
So,
I mean, that's one philosophy. I mean, I'm sure there's other ways that people, like to operate, but I think, in sales, especially when you start getting into the bigger ticket sales like this, I says you do need to probably connect with them in a significant way where they trust you pretty implicitly and are, want to hear your guidance and you have your experience help guide them. And I think if you do a good job with that, then that creates just a better relationship. It creates more loyalty. It has them coming back to ask you good questions because that's part of it as well. You can't read their minds.
No.
So you have to ask them questions that help you better feel for that particular customer. But you want to open it up and have them trust you enough where they're asking you good questions as well that help them understand the process.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. Well, we've talked at length here at a variety of topics, and I don't know if there was anything else, one last thing maybe you wanted to touch on, or anything that we maybe missed, or something you wanted to bring up before we kind of wrap things up here today.
No, like I said, I think for agents that are out there looking at growing their business and having this as a career, one of the things to keep in tune or in touch is that real estate is multifaceted and multi-dimensional. I've done anything and everything from doing some land divisions to help farmers get a little better price for their land when it's a selling of a family farm. I've done things where I've developed some acreages and land and got into that a whole bunch. You can't do it all. I tried to do it all just to kind of learn it so that I could understand it and know it and help my base of information grow. But you can specialize in different areas and aspects of it and still do really well, just trying to focus on that particular market or that kind of specialty. Obviously, you want to have several specialties probably because you want to be a little bit diverse in case market changes or shifts a little bit. But there's plenty of opportunity for people that enjoy other people and wanting to help other people and help learn the steps to help people with a significant move. Hey, when I did it in the car business, it was ultimately rewarding when you knew you had the new car that was the right fit for their family and it was going to get them traveled safely and they were very proud and excited about driving it off the lot. And it's even exponentially more when you do that and when you help somebody find the right house, probably a tough journey because they had things that came up along the way or things that just needed to be solved and resolved as we went along on that journey. But the end thing that keeps you kind of excited about it is the joy and the happiness and the good works that you do to help people get the home they really want, that also becomes a safe place for their family and a good investment, especially in this market where they continue to appreciate. So
I know, yeah, real estate's definitely been a good investment over the last few years. That's for sure. Definitely been impactful for a lot of people. And yeah, it can be 100% a very rewarding career. I know that's certainly some of what you touched on. I love about this business, just the variety, right? Every property is different. Every transaction's different. Every client's different, which I think keeps it interesting enough. And there's lots of different opportunities, lots of different ways to be successful, whether you hone in on a single niche or maybe have a couple different niches, but finding what your niche is and what you do resonate with and want to become an expert in is kind of up to you as an agent and what you decide to do with that. And so there's lots of opportunities out there. And as long as Michael's words in mind of doing what's right for the customer and being patient enough to reap what you sow through the process, I think you absolutely can grow your business. And Michael, I just really appreciate you coming on our podcast today and dropping lots of nuggets and lots of wisdom here today.
Hey, absolutely. My pleasure, Josh. It was a joy speaking up and helping share some things that maybe just we need to be a little bit reminded of sometimes and let know that, hey, if what you do and you get up in the morning and you're excited and you're joyful about it, it will continue to perpetuate yourself, and it'll also keep you learning more about that you so much have enjoyment for. So it's a great career, a lot of different ways of kind of bringing it on board of how you want to work in a career like this, either as a team lead, as a broker, as an agent, even as a team member. I mean, there's so many different ways that a person can kind of connect in or plug in and have it fit them and fit their lifestyle. So now I think than back when I started many years ago, because there's size of different teams, there's opportunities here that are kind of already in structure and laid out and have been proven that we were actually forging those paths many years ago. So now there's some outlines for that, and that's good for our business, and it's good for people wanting to get into our business and thrive in our business.
Yep. No, I definitely agree with that. There's lots of opportunities, and finding ways to plug in that resonates well with you is a little bit easier. Yeah, I think even that whole team concept we talked about, right? That was when I started in the business in 2005. It was hardly any teams out there even at that time. So, but anyway, lots of different ways to do it. And we continue to evolve and we continue to grow and get better and better every day, which is my goal with this podcast and my goal for people out there that are listening to hopefully pull away a few nuggets and a couple of learning opportunities from our show today and can help you improve your own business. So, well, Michael.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate you doing this and helping others out there as well. Hopefully the inspiration to them as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thanks again.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.
All right.
Take care. Best wishes.
All right. Well, you're watching the Better Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Lavik, and tune in next time for some more nuggets and wonderful special guests. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Better Agent Podcast. I hope you found today's insights valuable. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more tips, Q&A sessions, and sneak peeks into our 21-day challenge. To get full access of our show notes and more details on the 21-day challenge, go to abetterrealestateexperience.com. Keep striving for greatness, and I'll see you on the next episode.